Good afternoon. This is Rebbe Torah and Parashat Eikev. It's the third parsha of the last book of the Torah, Sefer Devarim. Moshe picks up where he continues. He begins with promising all kinds of good things if we follow the commandments that he gives, Hashem's commandments that we gives, and he describes how materially we will be gained. He'll love you, bless you, multiply you, bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land, your grain, your wine, and oil. There'll be no infertility among either people or the animals. He'll devour all the enemies in front of you. Do not fear, just like he did to the Egyptians. He'll do, even though the people are bigger. And he's also going to do it in such a way that the conquest, he's not going to give us the land all the time because the animals could take over, but he's going to do it bit by bit. And this is all. He then goes on to another parsha, and part of the parsha says that all the good things, remember what he did for you in the desert. We were living in climate controls with the clouds of glory and the pillar of fire at night. We didn't suffer anything. We didn't have to eat anything except the man, and our clothes never wore out. And the sandals never wore out. And if a child was growing up, both his clothes and his sandals would expand to meet him. And it's promising what the land will be like. I'll be getting back to that a little later in my Devar, in this Devar Torah. And then he goes on to take care, remind him that not think we should take credit as we get into Israel for well, and remember everything comes from Hashem, and remind him we're only there because Hashem promised it to us, not because of our righteousness. He reminded he then goes on to remind all the times we tested Hashem, including the golden calf and the Meraglim, and how he had to rebuild after he broke the first house. We had Hashem command to make a second. Now he's telling me, do not be stubborn, accept your reward and accept his commandments. And then reminds what happened when what he did to the Egyptians, also what he did to Datan, Aviram, and Korach when they rebelled. And he's then saying, repeating that if you do what I say, everything's going to be wonderful like the earlier promises, but otherwise, if they get seduced by the false gods, it's going to lead to us being moved over the land. And it says you need to cleave to Hashem. He will protect you. And he promises at the end, very interestingly, Pasuk 24, Kol makom asher tetarech kaf reglaim bo lechem hiyeh min midbar Lebanon min nahar prat ad Hayam Akaron here Givlecha, and that our borders will extend from the wilderness in Sinai and Lebanon, from the river to the Euphrates River, which would now be in modern-day Iraq, by Baghdad. Western boundary. Now, the western boundary by itself, it's a very interesting debate. The Chachamim say in a Gemara and Baba Basra that it means to the Mediterranean, shore of the Mediterranean. Rav Yehuda says the Great Sea that extends right, well, he didn't use this term because he didn't have it then, but what we'd say today, the Straits of Gibraltar, and from the Straits of Gibraltar, it will be all the lands touching the Mediterranean. When Mashiach comes, we'll see how that's going to work out. In any event, and he reiterates, if you follow the commandments of Hashem, no man will stand against you. He'll set terror and fear on it 5 days where you will tread as he spoke to you. So in other words, it's again a mixture of happy, sad, what we'll do if we do what we're supposed to. On the other hand, what will happen if we don't do what we're supposed to. Now, I would like to reflect on a few pasukim. Starting with chapter 8, verse 6. Shemaret et mitzvos Hashem Elokecha l'lechet l'dvarcham l'reira oto. You shall observe the commands of Hashem your God, go in his ways and fear him. That's not only fear from punishment, but fear of or realizing how great he is. And then it goes on in Pasuk 7. Ki Adonai Elohecha l'bevecha el eretz toveh anan na'alim mayim enei tehamon yotzei b'aka b'nahar. For Hashem is bringing you to a good land, a land with streams of water, springs, and underground water coming forth in mountain, valley, and mountain. And then it goes on Pasuk 8. Eretz Chita, Sora, Geffen, Teina, Rimon, Eretz Zayit, Shemen, and Davash. The seven special parts of the land of wheat, barley, grape, fig, and pomegranate, land of olive oil, oil olives, and date honey. And then goes on, Eretz Asher Lo Mitzmoka, note, Tochel Bar Lechem, Lo Yisrael Kol Aretz Asher, Avena Babazul Mehira Chotzeit Mehokshek, and you lack nothing, a land whose stones are iron and from whose mountains you will mine copper. And it says, will even be satisfied. Now, like anything, it sounds like a promise, good promise. However, there are deeper meanings to it. I would like to first go with the pasuk that talks about pasuk 7. He will bring you to a good land, a land with streams of water, springs, and underground water coming forth in the mountain. He uses three wordings: Eretz Nachalei Mayim, Anyon, Ayonot, and Mechuma Be'ut Hamot, which is translated to a land of with streams of water, springs, and underground water coming forth in valleys and mountains. Now, on the surface, this sounds promising. However, it has a deeper meaning. There's three Lashonot, as Rav Shimshon Astropoli, famous Rav in Ukraine in the 1600s, mid-16s. In fact, he died al Kiddush Hashem during the Ukrainian Kalmaniki uprising. And he says they're teaching us a number of things. Why these three Lashonot? Now, he says that's connected the Mikra, which means the Chumash, the Mishnah, and the Gemara. Now, interestingly enough, what does Mayim have to do with it? We say that Mayim is Torah is like Mayim. He says it also has another meaning within the written Torah. It's talking about the five books in the books of Moshe, Beinu the Chumash, the Nevi'im, and the Kutsuvim, like Psalms, Tehillim, and what have you. And that's another thing. Now, on one level, he's also explaining that the Chita and Sarah, the first two, wheat and barley, if you take them, they have a gematria. Each Hebrew letter has a number of the Taryag 613. Now, if you add it up, it doesn't appear that way. But again, there is a concept in gematria of Meloi. I'm not going to go through the actual calculation, where if you spell out each of the letters of a word, it totals up to 613. And he says there's even more. the chita, the shora, and the geffen, the wheat, the barley, and the wine, and the dates, and the pomegranates are connected the 5 books of the Torah. But that raises a question. You have 2 left. Zayat Shemen, oil of the olives oil, and Davash, those 2, that gets 7. So how does that work? Because we know that according to some, Parshas Bamidbar is divided into 3. So Parshas Sefer Bamidbar is actually 3 different books. That's where you get 7. So it also allows for that source too. And it says that it's going to be a land that is avanim barzel, stones that are like barzel, iron. It says you shouldn't read avania, which means stones or rocks, elaboneh. And what does that mean? The Talmud come and establish the world with their building, which in this case is the teaching and learning of Torah, and that should be kept in mind. That's one level. Now I'd like to go even a little deeper here. The next level I would like to go to is the following. This explains, now, these 7 species, I have 7 special brachas that we say for them. If the grains, if they're made into bread, in the case of wheat, you say hamoitzi, you say a whole different bracha, but for the other ones, there's special brachas you say along with the other products that I've listed. And the question is, there's a deeper level here. As is brought out in the Raya the Mina, Mehemna, it's teaching us something else, that we say special brachas because these were the formation. These are the formative 7 foods. And by doing that and saying these brachas before we eat from them, it sends our brachas go up to the higher worlds and reflecting different qualities of Hashem. It's one God, but Yud Kei Vav Kei Havaya, the one that created one, Elokeka, another one, and the others. That's all unity. Hashem allows us to have these different names to understand different qualities. Now, if we do that, Hashem will send Shefa down, abundance, bounty back to us, and that's another meaning of these. Now that still raises it's a very good point, because it goes that I'm not going to go through the whole thing now, but it goes into higher worlds, spiritual worlds, and then it comes back down and it distributes a bounty to the whole world. And this was particularly true in a time when we had the Beis Hamikdash, Mishkan and Beis Hamikdash, the temples. Now it's muted, but soon, Bezrat Hashem, when Mashiach comes, in fact, some people say the beginning of the portion, some of the commentaries, Eikev is talking, right now we're under Eikev, the heel of Yaakov's under the heel of Jewish people, under the heel of Asemet of Rome. But when Mashiach comes, that's all going to be removed. We're going to get the full bounty back again. In fact, the whole world will prosper once that domination is broken, Asemet of Rome. And as explained in the Likutei Torah, that there's an even deeper meaning. Of course, why should all this bracha come? Because we mentioned Hashem's name. Why these 7s? Because in doing this on a deeper level, we are recognizing Hashem's creative sayings is different qualities. Now, there are 10 qualities which Hashem has, which I'm going to mention in a second. And these 10 qualities is 10, 7 of them we know about from the time Conspiracy Omer is the more emotional qualities. The first 3 are more of intellectual. Again, this is for our understanding. Hashem is a unity, and none of this applies to him, but so we can have a perspective on him where it's broken down this way. Now, those 7 qualities, as explained, each one. Now, there's a little question: 7 qualities, 7 foods, but there's 10 sayings of which Hashem created the world. Now, I'll explain how that connects in a minute. Chita, the grain, the first one, represents Chachma. Sora, the barley, represents Bina. Now, how do we get 10 and 7 to work? The Geffen represents 4 of Hashem's qualities. One which we call the more intellectual, Da'at, and 3 emotional ones, Chesed, Gevurah, which means kindness, Gevurah, justice, and Tiferet, splendor. Now the Tena, the date represents Netzach, the Rimon represents Hod, and the Zayat Shemen, olive oil, is Yesod, and the last one, Davash, represent Malkut. All of these qualities. Now, how does that, and so we're getting that level. So every time we're saying these brachas, we're recognizing Hashem, we're bringing all kinds of things, we're helping to unify his name, raise the whole level of the world. But even more so, these 10 qualities are the equivalent or aspect of the 10 sayings with which Hashem created the world and Maaseh Bereshit, and therefore by doing these brachas and recognizing all this, as explained by the deriving from the Likutei Torah, is that we are recognizing Hashem's role, that everything is truly from Hashem. May we be able to see that more and more. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom.